I'm Dorothy Dent, and today we're going to paint some pink hollyhocks. I think you'll enjoy doing these. They're pretty simple to do. I started with a background that's already black, and this is black acrylic on the background. I gave it 2 coats and then transferred the line drawing with your white graphite paper, and that way you'll be ready to paint. You don't even need very many brushes today. We're going to use only 2 brushes today, and this one is my detail flat. It's a size 8, and then you're going to also need a liner, and just a little number 1 or number 2 liner will be great. So that's it. Let's run over the colors that you're going to need. Here's my palette, and I'm starting with white, and this one is cad yellow medium, and then you have this one's Grumbacher red. You could probably substitute a cad red light for that if you don't have the Grumbacher red. The other colors, these are all Permalba except for that one. And this one is alizarin crimson. And your purple is ultramarine violet. And then we have French ultramarine blue. And the last one is Payne's gray. And so that should be all the colors that we'll need today. We'll be mixing our greens, and I'll talk about that when we get to the green areas. So, also, of course, you need some brush cleaner out. I've got some in a little container over here that's just a good brush cleaner. And you need a painting medium. And in this cup, I've got a little bit of Weber's liquid glaze, and we can use that, or you can use liquid or whatever you're familiar with or like to use, but that's a medium. It speeds the drying of your paint and stretches it out a little bit too, makes it go on a little bit easier. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, we're going to get started, and actually I painted the leaves and everything first, but sometimes I like to do it just the other way around. So I think we're actually going to start with the flowers this time. It's up to you. You can either paint the greenery first or you can do the flowers. So it's a little more fun to do the flowers, so we'll get started with those first. Okay, let's start with this top flower. It's better to start at the top because that way you can still lay your hand on the canvas to steady yourself. And so we'll start with this flower right here. Now, all the flowers are so much done the same because we're using, of course, the same general colors in each one. There'll be some variation, but think of the growth direction of your petal. It comes out like that, and I'm starting with the back petal. It's better to start with whatever's in the back and then work forward. This little cupped portion of your petal right here we'll do after we do this. I'm going to mix a little pink, and let me hold this up where you can see it. Take a little bit of your alizarin crimson and maybe a little bit of the Grumbacher red as well, with just a small amount of white, so that you've got kind of a dark pink. And how red you want these to be is just up to you, but I'm mixing just to get a kind of soft pink, but it's still fairly dark. I will lay this at the base of the petal, come around the little center area. I'm going to work just a little bit darker. One thing that kind of throws you when you're painting on a black surface is when you mix your color and you're on a white surface down here, it looks brighter and darker, and when you come up to against the black, it kind of looks lighter. It takes away some of the darkness. So you have to add a little bit more than what you thought. So sometimes I pick up just a little straight alizarin, or I think the alizarin being darker is going to be the one we'll want to work with. And come on around. See how I'm flaring this out, so you're working in this little fanned out motion like that. And we'll come up against the front petal, so you're working that dark all along that front edge. Come along, and this almost straight alizarin right here. Fan it out, and then wipe the brush a bit and start picking up white. And I'm starting kind of out away from the dark, kind of come out toward the outside edge of the petal, and then just lightly kind of brush these colors together. See how I'm still working with my fanned out direction, and it's kind of wiggly on the edges. You don't have to get right to that little wiggle line that was drawn on. That's just kind of a suggestion right there. Sometimes you might want to pick up just a tiny bit of medium, and that makes it go a little bit easier. And see how I'm just flaring this out as you go along. And if you want it lighter, just wipe the brush and pick up a little bit more straight white on the outside edges. And then you're just pulling it down into the dark. These are kind of little up and down, back and forth strokes following that fanned out shape. And again, just a little heavier white on the outside edges gives it just a little more of a ruffle. You can come out past the line just a tiny bit. And that would be this portion of your petal, okay? You want to just blend this very, very lightly, just enough that you get the lines that might appear between the pink, the darker pink and the lighter pink. You want those worked out. So, but again, it's a very light touch. Don't push. And then we'll do the other side. And again, I'm going to pick up a lot of the alizarin crimson on this back side with not very much white. That's probably even more than I needed. I'm going to get just a little bit redder back there on your shadowed side to the back. Come out, be sure you cover up your tracing line. And again, look for where the petal would join the stem, and that is where you pull into to fan these petals out. So this is a little smaller petal on this back side. And then it depends on the white right here on its edge, which of course is turned in this time, to separate it from the back petal that we just did. So you're working light against dark. So there's the white, and it comes around all the way to the edge. Put it in and blend it a little bit, blend it back. So you're laying in that little light edge. There's your light edge. And then just with a little blending motion, pulling it back a bit. And that's going to be the back side of the petal. I'm going to leave the center unpainted for now. We'll come back and put the centers in all at once. And that makes it a little easier, I think. You can always add additional white to the edges if you feel like you need more contrast, but don't pull it down so far that you lose the pink at the bottom of the petal. See, that gives you a nice little cupped petal. And that would be done except for the green centers that we'll add in a few minutes, okay? Okay, let's move over to this little flower that's on the top flower on your far right. And it's going to be the same thing. All of these flowers really are basically done the same. So once you've done one or two, you've got the idea of it. You can just do them all, I think, pretty easily. We'll work your dark, which is this is just alizarin with just a tiny little bit of the Grumbacher red in it. No white at this point. And I'm just putting this kind of at the very base of the petal. There's going to be the greenery right there that's holding it. Pull it out a little in a fan-shaped pattern there. And then I'm going to wipe the brush and pick up just a wee bit of white, which will make a pink. And I'll put some pink in the petal toward the center. Still staying away from the away from the edge there, the outside edge. I'm not quite catching into that. And then I get a little bit of white. As I come on out, right at the edge, we're just going to lay a little light edge in. And this is just straight white. And make it look a little ruffled, a little wiggly on the outside edges is prettier. Maybe just a little touch of medium in the paint doesn't hurt. And then after the edge is in, I'm going to just wipe the brush off on a piece of my paper towel So I've got rid of some of the heavy paint that's in the brush. And then just lightly pull the light and dark together like you were doing before. And that one is done. I might put just a little hint of the lavender. Some of these have just a little bit of the ultramarine violet and white in there. Didn't quite enough to show up. We've got to get a little bit more that will show up. I like some of that light lavender color in there, but be careful with it because you don't want to turn it completely lavender. You still get a little bit more white on the edges and kind of ruffle them. Hollyhocks have such a soft edge, they're such soft petals, and they will have that little ruffle there. And then that one could be called done, I think, at any time here. Darker at the back, lighter at the front, and you've got it. Okay, now that we've got this one done, let's go ahead and do this one that's just below it. And again, we want to paint the back petals first, so we're going to come in with these petals back here. There's kind of two petals there. And start again with your dark red, your alizarin crimson, maybe just a little bit of the Grumbacher red. And let's just lay that in without any white in it at all at the bottom of the petals. We'll do both of these at the same time. I think there's a little break right in there that makes it into two petals instead of one. That would be a little large for one petal anyway. So we're working this dark red right at the bottom, and then pick up just a little bit of white with your dark red. That'll make a pink. And we don't really want to work with more paint than we absolutely need on the brush. That makes it a little easier to blend. Sometimes students get too much paint on their brush and they don't know where to go with it, and it kind of, if you have too much white, it ends up covering up all your red and you lose it. So we have to be careful. Work a little bit of the red or the pink color down into the darker red. And I'm going to just wipe the brush with my paper towel and pick up heavier white. This is just the same thing we've been doing on the other petals. See, we're going to come in right along that edge with your white. You can blend a little bit as you go, or you can just, probably easier just to go ahead and lay it in. And come on around to the next petal. This one needs to be pretty light on the edge. And coming on around. See, I'm picking up a little bit more paint along as we go. Want to be sure and cover up your tracing lines. Some of these tracing lines right here belong to the other flower, I think. But so that makes an edge on there. Now once we've got our edge on, then we've got to blend it down into the rest of the petals so it looks like it's natural and set together. And when I'm doing this blending, I really don't have any paint at all in the brush. I'm just using the brush dry and pulling the colors together that we've already put on there. So that way we won't get so much paint that we don't know how to blend it together. It makes it too heavy. Going around with that one. I'm going to add maybe just a little bit of purple at the bottom of this petal here, just a little bit. May not show up too much on the screen there, but maybe you can see it. A little bit of lavender is pretty in there. And we're nice and dark down here to the bottom still yet, so that when we come in with a light edge on this other petal, it will show up. So that would, this portion here could be called finished. Okay, so again we're going to work on the back of the petals first. Get your darker reds in there. Come on around the edge there. And then this front petal will be lighter. So come in with your pink, quite a bit of white maybe. Let's let this petal be pretty light, and it kind of curves around and connects to the back petal right there. So you get that little curve pulling it on around the edge. And it takes more paint. around, and then again curve it into the edge of the back petal right there. That makes it connect. And then we'll very lightly just pull these colors together. As you can tell, these petals are not real smoothly blended. I wasn't looking for a real smooth blend on these. I wanted to have a little bit more of a brush stroke loose look on them. Because I like to see some thicker paint. I like to see some brush strokes. I think it looks more like a painting. But they could be done a little smoother too if you prefer yours more blended. So this little curve coming around, be sure you've got enough white on the edge right there that it connects it and makes it cup right there. And then the same thing up here. You got the little cup. And then it's coming down toward where the green is going to come in and hold the flower. And then that one also is completed. Okay, let's move on into this flower here. We're looking straight in at this flower, and you're still going to have to show some separation between the petals or they'll all run too much together. So we'll work that out as we go along. Again, I'm going to start with the reds. Lizard crimson, a little bit of the Grumbacher red, I guess. And I'm going to paint that red down at the bottom like we've been doing. And we could just come around and maybe do the whole bottom part of each petal with some of the red. We'll just kind of paint this all at once. If you want to separate them and do one petal at a time, you can. There's nothing wrong with that. But I thought at least we'd get some of this red in. See how I'm fanning it out as we come on around. We'll have to come back and do some adjusting on our lights and darks anyway, I'm quite sure. But I'm just laying that red in there and pulling it out. It's the Grumbacher red shows up just a little bit more than the alizarin, but I have some of each in here. Trying not to get a heavy amount of paint on here, just get enough that you can see it. And like I said, we'll have to adjust these as we move along and get into the lighter colors. So if you got your reds in there like that, then you can kind of wipe the brush and start picking up some white. And I'll come in not quite to the edge first, and this will be your pinks. And again, I'm working in toward the center. Come in toward the center. And then as you come out to the outside edge, I'm going to get white out here. I want to make sure we cover up all of our little tracing lines. Pulling the white back in over the red a bit. You can always come in and add more red back here. This is Grumbacher red, getting that one a little bit brighter toward the back. You have to decide again how much blending that you want to do. I mean, there's not a right or wrong, just so that you get, it looks set in and you get the light on the outside edges. Some people prefer to have it more softly blended, and other people like to see more brush strokes, and neither one is wrong. It's just up to whatever you prefer. Now I'm going to leave just a little bit of separation here before I would start another petal. So I'm going to leave just a little crack there of dark, and then we'll work this petal the same. And I'll come in kind of, again, kind of toward the end, but not quite there, and fan this one out. And right on the outside edge again is more white. So I'm just laying a kind of a little ruffled edge in that will then get the inside part of that white is what we pull back and leave the outside part a little heavier. Pull it back. And then I wiped the brush and picked up just a little bit more Grumbacher red on this one and threw in a little bit more red toward the center. And maybe pull a little bit more white back in. You can come back and add more lights and or darks to these just as you want to. I want to make this petal a little lighter on the edge, and we'll leave that one a little darker. That will give you some separation for those. These two petals here are running pretty much together, and I think just to separate them I'm going to add just a little bit of shading on the back petal there. Maybe just a little tiny touch of the violet right there on that back petal. That'll pull those two petals apart. And that's what we need to do so they don't run completely together. Put a little shadow on that one back there. Okay? Okay, working on around this middle flower. Let's continue our same idea here. We're getting a little bit of the pink in the center. And I'm kind of filling that in along as I go along and not quite going all the way to the outside edge. And just blend it as much as you want to, whatever look you're going for. I'll make this edge maybe come out just a little bit over this other one, throwing that petal to the back. Or you can do it the other way around. But you have a lot of options with flowers. Whichever way you think the petals would fold can be worked that way. And then right around the very edge again we're going to put some more white. Be sure you're covering up your pattern lines. Kind of squeezing that paint off on the top of the brush so it looks like it leaves a little brighter white there. Works pretty well. And then I'm going to take just a little bit of the cad red light and again run a little bit up through, kind of fanned out through the center. And then we'll move on to the next petal. I'll do a couple more here. So let's leave this one to be lighter and make this one the underneath petal. And again, you can use just a little bit of that lavender too to put in wherever you think they're underneath. A little cool blue lavender color's pretty in there. It's a little separation. And then again, we're coming up here with our white. If you load your brush so the white is more on top of the bristles right here, and then come in like this and kind of push it off so the paint is toward the outside edge. That works pretty well. And then you've got the edge there, and then all you have to do is come in with the flat of the brush and pull out that line that's at the bottom. And that blends it nicely. And then that will only leave us two more petals, and now let's just go ahead and do those. Our red already on there, just kind of moistening it just a little bit more. And then pick up your white to make a pink. And start again just below the edge. I'll just do these two at the same time. You can always do several at the same time if you don't get confused on what's what and where it is. Gotta make sure we don't lose our separation entirely. And then again with the paint kind of up on the brush, you can push off that little edge coming on around. This one will pull down, the white will again pull down toward the center. A little extra white on this one maybe. Getting just a few more little strokes in there toward the middle, just to loosen up the strokes a bit. Make it have a few little streaks in there. Makes it look a little more ruffled maybe. And then other than the center, I think we've got this flower is done. These go pretty quickly once you get in the hang of where you lay the lights and darks and you're blending. They move along fairly quickly. But maybe just a few little strokes of violet in there, some of your ultramarine violet. Pretty in there. And we'll leave that one alone. Okay, let's move on over to this next flower, and this one's going to be done just like the one we just left. These are both full face flowers looking straight at you. So we're going to again lay our dark values down at the bottom. Get your alizarin crimson in there with a little bit of the Grumbacher red. I'm just going to pull it out like we did on the others. So let's just start with getting it all in on each petal. Goes a little quicker that way, I think. You can turn your brush different ways. I tend to work a lot kind of on the side of the brush really to get these little streaks in. Rather than using the whole flat of the brush, you can turn it sideways. See, like this, and kind of go out like this direction rather than using the whole flat and pulling it out, but I guess either way will work. It's a little bit easier to get a streaky look for it working on the side. So there's our darker centers. And then I'm picking up white and starting out here almost to the edge, but not quite. And we'll again pull down toward the center. Get all of this in the same general area. We'll get it all in here first. Try not to lose all of the dark though down in the throat of the petals, down in the center part. Leaving some a little looser blended is good. And we can just get these whipped in here pretty quickly. Getting all of this covered up, and then I'm picking up just a little bit more of the Grumbacher red again and just kind of putting a little extra in and some of the lower portions there. And then at that point in time, I think I'll just clean the brush and wipe it out. Always dry it well after you've dipped it in your turf. And then come along to the outside edge. Again, if you load that brush on the one flat side of the brush and then pull down, loading it on that one side, and then pushing the paint out, pushing it toward the outside edge, it gives you a nicer little ruffle, a little easier maybe, and a little heavier paint on that edge. And then we'll just pull these little, you're catching under the white that you laid in. If you go all the way out to the edge and pull it in, you'll lose that little ruffle on your edge and have to put it back on. So we'll just get these all worked in real quickly and then pull from the bottom of the white. these could be a little whiter. We'll just put a little bit more white down a little further. You can make them as white as you want. The more white ones you would have, then the less red you would put in. You wouldn't pull the red quite so far up if you wanted some of them whiter. And again, we have to watch where we have two petals coming together so that we have a light edge on one and a darker edge on the other. And sometimes it doesn't really matter which way you lap them, just so that you get a separation there. A little bit more edge on these two down here. This one here is kind of running out of the painting. I'm going to let it be just a little darker, I think, as it goes out of the picture, because you're not actually seeing the end of the petals on this particular flower. Just kind of seeing everything but the very edge. Okay. That one is about to the point of being done. A little bit more white maybe on this one on the edges. And again, I'm trying not to just overwork them. I like to see a little streaks and little texture on there. I'm going to put just a little more white on this flower here, I think. I'm going to come back and just add a little bit more white on it, just kind of toward the middle of the painting here, a little bit off center, but if it was a little brighter, it might show up as a little more eye-catching. You can go back and adjust colors. Just because you leave a petal or leave a flower doesn't mean you can't go back and work on it some more. We know that. We can just keep painting until we get it to the point that we like it. Make that one just a little bit brighter. Okay, and then we'll stop on this petal, and then we've only got one more complete flower. So coming right along with them. Okay, let's go ahead and paint our last flower, and this one is a folded over flower, so these two petals here are behind. So we'll paint those first. So we'll come in with our alizarin crimson and maybe a little bit of the Grumbacher red as before. And paint down there and bring it up a little way. This one also at the back of the petal. There's another little, this little petal here also is kind of a hanging down one and behind, so I'll go ahead and put a little bit on that one. And then we'll go into the pink. Starting kind of in the center. Trying not to lose all of the dark at the bottom. If some of it gets over blended or picked up, you can always put it back by putting some more dark down there. This little petal has some purple in it. Just pick up a little bit of my violet. I'm going to put a little bit of violet in it. Okay, put a little bit in that one. And then we'll come on with our white to the outside edge. quite a bit of white on the outside of this petal. And I'm going to add a little extra white on this one too. Just come on around the edges. And then wipe my brush before I come in to soften these lines together. And get out of it before it gets too overworked. There's another little bit of white on that one. Wipe my brush and blend. Put a little bit more alizarin at the bottom of this petal here. Okay. And then we only like the two petals at the top, and so again remember that these are flip petals, so your darker value will be toward the bottom of each petal. And pull it up a bit. Put just a little bit of purple in this one too, just a little bit with the alizarin. Then we'll come in with a little bit of pink. Pink on this one. And now then we'll depend on the white edges to separate them. Extra white on this one too. Right around the edge of the petal, and then we'll pull it in. A little bit more purple on the bottom of that might be pretty there. Okay. I think that one is covered, so we'll have the flower petals all done, and then we'll put the centers in next. Okay, let's go ahead and paint these little bits of pink that you see inside the buds. It looks like they're just getting ready to pop open. Make it just a little irregular so it's not just a little round circle. There's this one here, and there's just a wee bit up high. Right there, there's a little touch of pink in there. And then going across to the other side, there's just a little tiny touch right in here. And I think that's only ones that look like they're starting to open up. So that's just, any of your pink colors would be fine for these little buds. Not really, don't really need any shading or highlighting or whatever. They're just little bits of pink. And that's all for that. Okay, let's mix some greens for our stems and our little buds, our leaves, and even the centers of the flowers are going to be some of these varied greens. To make a really dark green, you can use your Payne's Gray and also maybe a little bit of the ultramarine blue. Bring it over here to the side and add a touch of yellow to it. Not too much yellow, just a little bit, so it has a black green look. That's what you want, kind of a black green. Then take a little of that off to the side and add some more yellow and some white, and you get a very light green. And of course, the more white you would add to it, then the lighter it gets. You don't want a real harsh yellow in there, so that's why I like to lighten it with more to the white than the more and more yellow, so you get a softer looking green. These are the greens that we'll be using as we go through our leaves and so forth, and something in between. The very, very dark and the light can also be put in there, just, you know, where you've got it kind of a mid-tone green. You want some of those various greens. It's not critical that they be an exact color, but just so you have something from a dark to a light mix. Let's paint the little centers first of the flowers. We've got a little center that's going to be up here. Take one of your kind of dark to mid-tone greens and just tap in the bottom of the center. Maybe just a little bit more dark right at the very base of it there where it goes in behind the petals. It's quite dark. And this is just kind of loosely tapping that in. And then right there on the very outside tip, pick up one of your light greens and tap a little bit right to the outside edge like that. So it puts a little highlight on it. And that's all we really need for that little center. And then we'll move down to this middle one right here. These little centers are more like a star shape. They're kind of star shaped, I noticed. Come out, whether you can see your pattern lines or not. This is kind of a light green, one of your lighter greens. And just kind of pull out toward the center of your petals. And it doesn't have to be real stiff looking. It can be kind of soft there. Fuzzy edges is fine. And right in the middle is just a little bit tapped in, a little bit of white tapped in there. Like that. Looks like perhaps too just a little touch of red, and the red may just accidentally go in there, or you can actually put a little suggestion of red in there. And that's the center. That's good enough for your center. Just be sure the little points go down into the middle of each one of your petals. That connects them to the petal. Okay, let's move on over to this left flower and do the same thing with it. This is a patting stroke more than a brushing stroke. It's just kind of patting, again, kind of patting down into the end of each one of your petals. That attaches it to the center. And if you pick up a little bit of the red, that's fine. Then actually you want to do that. Just let it look like it belongs there. So you get that center with the green, and then again I'm picking up a little bit of straight white with the corner of the brush and just tapping it into the middle and loosening up just a little bit around the edges. So it's not, we're not looking for just a little tight circle or anything. It just kind of softens out. And that should be probably all we really need to do on the centers. And then we're going to go on to our stems and our leaves. Okay, we're going to move on down to our stems now, and if you can get a little bit of your darker value green along the left side of the stems, we'll just drop that in there, and then the lighter green is a little more to the right side of the stem. Don't base the stems in with one flat color and then try to add more light to them. It's easier to do it as you go, just putting the dark in first and then adding the light to the edges, and the same's going to go for the leaves. Instead of base coating them all with one color, like on this leaf here, just come in and maybe do a little bit of dark on the underneath side, leave the top unpainted, and then come in with your light green and fill in the top half, and then just loosely blend into the edge of the dark and then quit before you overwork it. Everybody blends too much usually, and me too sometimes. But you can, little bitty stems you can do with one stroke of your brush with the side of the brush. And then work your dark side and your light side on these little leaves. We could do 2 or 3 leaves at a time if you'd rather, instead of painting them all separate. You can continue with a dark value and then put your light in. And do several at a time, and it goes a little quicker, I think, that way. You can even let a little bit of the dark of the canvas show in your leaves and add just a little contrast in your colors. You don't have to cover up every bit of that black background. Sometimes it just works real well to give you some dark streaks in your leaves that look like little vein lines or something. These little leaves sometimes have just a little bit of a point. And we'll just keep doing leaves until you get all your leaves painted. Continuing on with our leaves, when you come to where a leaf or a flower is connected to the stem, there's a little calyx in there, and it needs to come up under the flower with the edge of your brush. Just bring some of that green up so it nestles the flower itself down into the greenery. So you get the look of it being nicely attached. And then we'll continue on down with our stems and leaves on this one. The little stems and the leaves should be pretty easy to do because there's a lot of repetition in the colors, and just getting the leaves shaped is repetitious too, so I don't think you'll have too much trouble doing these. Just be sure you do have some light and dark values. That's what makes them pretty and interesting. You can redesign some of the leaves if you don't like the pattern shapes. Just paint it a little bit different, make it look better. You might want just a little touch of medium in some of the leaves, and if your paint begins to feel a little bit dry, that's always what your medium is there for, is to moisten the paint a bit more. Skinny little leaves you can do with 1 or 2 strokes, and they will go on rather quickly. Just remember that we don't want them all the same color, so we want to get that variation in there. That makes them much more interesting. You can always come back and throw more highlight on them too with your yellow greens. Yellow greens say sunlight. That makes it look like you've got the light hitting them nicely, so don't forget to make some of them a little brighter. Okay, let's move over here to the left side of the canvas and start working on these stems and leaves here. In the dark values. The dark values need to be darker, and other times they need to be a little lighter, but you just need something that will show up. I like more of a blue-green in my leaves than a lot of yellow-green, which can get a little harsh and bright looking. And if you have too much yellow-green, add more white to it. And you still have a nice light value, but it's not going to be such a bold yellow that looks sometimes a little too bright. You don't want it to take away from the flowers. Now here's another instance where we've got the bottom of the flower connected to the calyx right here. So we're just going to turn that up a little bit so it looks like it's catching the flower and connecting, holding it. And a little bit of the pink pulled into the leaves doesn't hurt a thing. In fact, you usually want to put just a little bit of the flower color in the leaves. That's good to do. big long leaf coming in through here. Put some bark on the underneath side, a little bit more blue maybe. Blues or even a little bit of lavender is pretty in the stems. I'm going to put just a little touch of the violet in there. That's real pretty in your leaves. Yeah, I like the violet in there. I'm going to go back over to this other side and add some violet over here too, because it's just pretty. Brush a little bit of violet in there. Little touches of pink can also be added to the leaves. Just kind of pulls things together. Little reflections of the pink flowers on the green. If you ever see some of your pattern lines, and I've got white graphite there on there that put pattern on with. If you see it after you have already finished the painting and everything is dry and so forth, you don't want to go back and paint on the leaves anymore. Just a little bit of turp on a clean brush will remove those little white graphite lines. All you have to do is just clean your brush and come in under there and just kind of go right up against the line and erase it. It just will be gone in an instant. So it's good to know how to erase things sometimes. Okay, let's move up here to the top of our canvas and continue these little leaves. It's way up high. Same idea, getting some dark in there as well as some light. Again, be sure that your light color has enough white in it to have that softer look. There's some little buds up here that are just starting to pop open, where we put a little bit of green earlier on. So you're just going to miss those as you do your stems and your leaves. But they're kind of like just doing a leaf. You just want to put a little bit of dark on one side and, you know, a little bit more light on the other side and just get some different variations of your greens going on. And kind of a little variation in those colors. You can pat in some lights and darks too, just to keep that little variation working for you. More dark on the underneath side. That's just a little bit more blue when you've got those darker values that you want to do. And here's another little calyx that comes out to hold this flower here. There's a little bit of a light edge there of green. Greens are yellow greens. And moving on to the other side. Some of the same things. Let's do a little bit more yellow green on this edge. This flower also is being held by its little calyx. This one's rather tall up here, so we've got quite a few little buds that's on the end of the stems up here. Some of these are leaves and some of them are just little closed up buds, which looks like leaves anyway. Just enough light on them to make them pop out. A design like this one could be broken apart and put into different sizes of shapes of canvas, or you could use it on a furniture piece or whatever you chose to put it on, because you can just pick out the flowers that you want and redesign it. It'd be fun to do. Some of those small buds are nothing more than one little stroke. Maybe just a wee bit of highlight up there. And it looks like that we might have this one all done. Okay, I think this one is done, and so I'm going to sign my name now. Hope you enjoyed painting it along with me, and good luck to all of your paintings in the future. I'm going to sign my name to this one. Have fun. Bye-bye.